Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku. Back with another fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became the Symbol of Chaos? Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. All for One failed to reach the forest in time to unlock Izuku's birth quirk, so Izuku remained quirkless and was 15 when he and his mother went missing. The Bakugo family reported them missing. All Might became involved after noticing the family had vanished without taking any belongings, a pattern that matched other victims connected to All for One. He felt terrible when he learned Izuku had been a devoted fan and had endured severe bullying. In this alternate timeline, All Might never met Izuku. Reiko and Setsuna's families had relocated before the villain attack that killed Setsuna's family. Reiko's family had moved with them. Reiko and Setsuna only learned about Izuku and his mother's disappearance after it hit the news. The case became a major story and helped expose the Meta Liberation Army's resurgence. Hitoshi later joined Izuku after Izuku revealed the darker truths about hero society. Izuku never kills, he incapacitates opponents so they can no longer use their quirks. He steals quirks but provides victims with copies he created beforehand. He hates the process of creating Nomo because they were once human, but he will resort to it when dealing with truly monstrous individuals. He is fascinated by how multiple quirks interact when combined. Izuku despises the Hero Commission for allowing corruption to spread, for promoting bias toward heroic quirks over villainous ones, and for secretly funding abuse and neglect of the quirkless and those with villain-associated quirks, factors that helped fuel the rise of villains. In this story, the Commission was also responsible for the death of Nana Shimura and lied to All Might, blaming All for One. All for One returned to open villainy with the goal of exposing and destroying that corruption. The Meta Liberation Army was responsible for much of the hatred the quirkless faced and controlled Izuku's old school. The story begins during the USJ incident. Tomura Shigaraki, formerly Tenko Shimura. Age, 24, height, 175 centimeters, hair, light blue, eyes, gray. Role, second in command and acting leader when Izuku is absent. Abilities: Decay and Restore. The user can rapidly break down matter on contact, causing objects or structures to disintegrate. The effect can be reversed within 24 hours. Super Regeneration. The user heals from injuries extremely quickly. Overhaul. The user can disassemble and reassemble matter by hand. Corrupt. The user can infuse objects or people with a destabilizing energy that gradually erodes mental stability or physical cohesion. Ruin Chain. When the user triggers decay, similar nearby materials can also be affected in a cascading effect. Disable. The user can deactivate one or more of their own quirks. Weather Manipulation. The user can influence weather patterns. Black Wing. The user can sprout massive black wings for high-speed flight. Black Lightning. The user can generate dense, erratic black electricity that disrupts technology and overwhelms defenses. When combined with Corrupt, it can complicate recovery from its effects. Spear-like Bones. The user can produce cone-shaped bone projections that function as spikes or projectiles, useful for offensive and defensive maneuvers. Likes: games, his family in its many forms, the Legion of Villains, Kurogiri, Team Terror. Dislikes: Hero Society and its corruption, UA's manufactured heroes, the Hero Commission, quirk discrimination. Backstory: abused by his father for his fascination with heroes, Tomura's decay manifested and led to a tragic accident. All for One took him in afterward. His life shifted again when he met Izuku and Inko. Through them he found a new sense of family. Together with Izuku, he helped form the Legion of Villains, with Tomura leading the Legion while Izuku commanded Team Terror. He cares deeply for his chosen family and treats the Legion as an extension of that bond. Kurogiri, Oboro Shirakumo. Age, 36, height, 190 centimeters, eyes, yellow. Role, Warp Gate and an uncle figure for Team Terror and the Legion of Villains. Abilities: Warp Gate. The user can create and control a dark fog that acts as a portal, transporting anything the fog touches to nearby locations. Void Step. The user can instantly step between shadows within line of sight, making them unreachable while traveling through darkness. Abyssal Veil. The user can produce a dense, dark mist that absorbs light and many energy-based attacks, temporarily disrupting quirks that rely on sight or precise aim. Likes: Old Friends and Family, Team Terror, The Legion of Villains. Dislikes: The Meta Liberation Army, Manufactured Heroes, The Hero Commission, Quirk Discrimination. Backstory: Nearly killed during a confrontation, Oboro's body was retrieved and transformed by All for One into the Nomu Kurogiri. With much of his memory initially lost, he followed orders without question. Over time, fragments of his past returned, and after witnessing systemic corruption, he chose to align with All for One's effort to dismantle the rotten structures. He views the Legion and Team Terror as his new family and cares for them deeply. He dreams of reuniting with his old family and hopes his fiancée, Nemuri Kiyama, will accept him in his new form and understand the choices he made. Name: Dabi. Real name: Toya Todoroki. Age: 27. Hair color: black, dyed. True hair color: white. Color: face. Height: 176 centimeters. Normal appearance: his scars had been treated by doctors, and he kept artificial burn marks when he needed to present himself as a villain. Role: long-range combatant, fire specialist, and the older brother figure within the Legion and Team Terror. Quirks: Cremation. Dabi can ignite intense blue flames on his body with minimal effort and combust almost anything he touches. At full mastery, he can shape and control heat and flame with precision, and in extreme exertion he can produce white fire. Super regeneration. He can rapidly recover from serious injuries, even wounds that would normally be incapacitating. Frostbite. He can sharply lower the temperature of whatever he touches, causing rapid freezing effects that numb and immobilize targets. Black Ice. He generates a dense, shadowy ice that is nearly frictionless and spreads quickly to immobilize and encase targets. Black Frost. He can surround himself with a dark, durable frost and unleash it in powerful blasts that are difficult to shatter without extremely intense flames. Thermal Core. A biological heat core lets him absorb, regulate, and store extreme heat, making him highly resistant to fire and explosions. Light Blade. He can form solid blade-like constructs of condensed light from his hands or fingertips for precise strikes and defensive use. Hard Flame Fan. He can create layered walls of fire to shield parts of his body. Air Cannon. He can release powerful shockwaves of air from his palms. Shoulder-mounted jets. He is equipped with 4 retractable jet boosters on his upper back for speed-enhanced flight. Hellwing. He can manifest large, fiery wings that grant flight and emit intense heat. Activating them gives him a partially demonic appearance with glowing eyes and ember-like trails. Likes: his mother, his brothers, his sister, his girlfriend Mo Kamiji, Burnin, the Legion of Villains, his friends, Team Terror, and teasing his allies. Dislikes: the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and his father Endeavor. Background: from a young age, Toya endured his father's harsh and often abusive training aimed at shaping him into Endeavor's successor. He inherited a powerful quirk that produced intense blue flames but struggled to control it and was badly injured in the process. Endeavor, obsessed with surpassing all might, pushed Toya beyond his limits and neglected both his physical and emotional needs. After a tragic accident left Toya presumed dead, he survived but was badly scarred and adopted the identity of Dabi. Before his apparent death, Mo was the one person who kept him going. When he returned, he found little had changed. His father remained distant and his mother was in a psychiatric hospital. He later found Mo and learned she had never given up looking for him. Mo now secretly provides the Legion with information about Endeavor and other heroes. Name: Nakayama Seiichi. Villain name: Mustard. Age: 18. Color: brown. Hair color: light brown. Height: 167 centimeters. Role: strategist and ambush specialist. Quirks: Neurotoxin Cloud, an evolved gas-based quirk that allows mastery over a range of neurological and chemical airborne agents, making him a stealthy battlefield specialist. Toxic Bloom. He can generate and mix airborne toxins to create clouds with varied effects, from disorientation to paralysis. Gas sculptor. He can condense gas into semi-solid constructs like arms, barriers, or tendrils to use as tools or weapons. Miasma field. He emits an aura that weakens enemies over time, reducing stamina and perception in prolonged encounters. Muscle augmentation times 5. He can amplify and control his muscle strength up to 5-fold, choosing the level of force he applies. Super regeneration. He heals from injuries at accelerated rates. Force field. He can create invisible or translucent energy barriers to block physical and energy attacks, shaped by his will and focus. Air cannon times 10. He can unleash devastating shockwaves of air from his palms. Likes. Developing theories, playing games, the Legion of Villains, and his friends. Dislikes. UA, his father, the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and quirk discrimination. Background. He had once been a promising student with dreams of becoming a hero, but his gas-based quirk made him feel inadequate and led to social isolation and bullying. Growing up in a poor and abusive household, he sought a way to escape and found a different path with the Legion. Story summary. Toya's life was shaped by relentless pressure and a terrible accident that left him presumed dead. Reborn as Dabi, he embraced a new identity and joined the Legion, holding on to the hope of reconnecting with his family and the person who never stopped searching for him. Nakayama, who became Mustard, turned his frustration and isolation into strategic force within the same network of villains. Both men, driven by anger and a desire for agency, maneuver through a fractured world of heroes and villains while clinging to the ties and grievances that define them. Everything changed when he met Izuku. Jin Babaigawara found a new family where he could finally feel accepted and happy. Jin Babaigawara, known as Twice, was 34. He had blonde hair and gray-blue eyes. As a cloner and army specialist, his abilities had evolved beyond a simple duplication trick. Infinite division allowed him to create perfect, fully autonomous clones that could themselves reproduce, enabling the rapid formation of an exponential force. Cellprint let him reconstruct a person's body from memory after physical contact, taking more time than duplication but requiring no measurements. Patchwork enabled him to stitch together imperfect, unstable copies that were versatile and could even combine multiple quirks. His muscle apex enhanced and refined muscle fibers to grant superhuman strength, speed, and durability, and bone arsenal let him manipulate his skeletal structure to produce dense, weapon-like formations for close to mid-range combat in a stylized, anime-like way. Super regeneration healed injuries at remarkable speed, and the kinetic booster multiplied the kinetic energy he could release. The specialized abilities such as Bone Arsenal and Muscle Apex applied only to his own clones. Jin valued knowing he was the original, the camaraderie of the Legion of Villains, and his close friends in Team Terror. He opposed the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and quirk discrimination. His story began with loneliness and a longing for companionship. He initially used his quirk to create comfort and later for criminal activity. When his clones began to conflict with one another, he questioned his identity and ultimately sought belonging within the Legion of Villains. Kenji Hikishi, known as Magna, was 34 and stood tall, with red hair and gray eyes. She acted as an older sister figure within the group, fierce and protective. Her magnetism quirk allowed her to magnetize people or parts of their bodies within a radius, producing attraction or repulsion depending on polarity. She could shape metal into armor or offensive structures with Iron Maiden, bind magnetized allies or weapons into synchronized orbits with orbit sync for coordinated maneuvers, and store kinetic energy while moving to unleash explosive dashes through kinetic charge. Muscle augmentation multiplied her strength and control, while transforming arms allowed long-range, elastic-style attacks and splitting her limbs for multi-pronged moves. She also possessed enhanced regeneration. Magna loved the Legion of Villains, her friends, Team Terror, cooking, playfully teasing teammates, and acting as a steady presence for her chosen family. She resented being misgendered. Anyone who hurt her family, the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and quirk discrimination. Born in a conservative rural town where she could not freely express herself, She felt misunderstood from a young age. Her magnetism emerged during a moment of intense emotional stress, and she was rejected and feared by the community. Despite that pain, she never stopped believing in a freer world. She eventually found acceptance in the Legion of Villains, where she embraced a cause shaped by disillusionment with the hero system and became a warm, protective elder sibling to those around her. Atsuhiro Seiko, known as Mr. Compress, was 34, with brown hair and brown eyes and a role as an ambush specialist. He could compress multiple targets into small, marble-like spheres with a gesture, selectively affecting areas of objects or people and manipulating gases, liquids, and pressure with precision. His stage pocket allowed him to store non-living items in an invisible extra-dimensional space and summon them at will. Vanishing Point made touched items temporarily undetectable to the senses while remaining physically present. Curtain Call generated a swirling stage mist that disoriented opponents and concealed movement, sometimes carrying subtle illusions or sounds. Puppet Strings produced invisible threads to manipulate targets' motions as if on strings. He also had super regeneration and could create afterimages by moving fast enough to leave visual echoes that confused enemies and aided evasive maneuvers. Together, these individuals found purpose and belonging within the Legion of Villains. They trained, fought, and built a makeshift family, each motivated by a desire to challenge a system they believed unjust and to protect the bonds they had formed. Their conflicts and victories unfolded with the intensity of a high-stakes, action-driven story, focused on identity, loyalty, and the search for acceptance. Atsuhiro Seiko, villain named Mr. Compress, is a performer who uses illusion, sleight of hand, and misdirection as both art and weapon. He enjoys putting on shows, messing with others, playing with younger members, the Legion of Villains, his friends, Team Terror, and his family. He dislikes interruptions during his monologues or acts, the Meta Liberation Army, Fake Heroes, Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and quirk discrimination. Atsuhiro was born into a family of traveling performers where stagecraft and storytelling were a legacy. From a young age he loved the spotlight and the magic acts his family performed. As Hero Society rose and public fascination shifted to flashy quirks and superhero spectacle, his craft was sidelined. When his compress quirk manifested, allowing him to shrink objects and people, he wove it into his misdirection and turned each performance into a demonstration of both skill and threat. He believed heroes had become actors who ignored suffering offstage and, drawn to Stain's ideology, he joined the Legion of Villains to fight perceived corruption and give true performers a voice. He adopted the title Mr. Compress and carried himself with an elegant, theatrical code of honor. Shuichi Iguchi, villain named Spinner, is 23 years old and 174 centimeters tall, with pink hair and red eyes. He serves as a close-range combatant and scout. He likes Stain, Karma, the Legion of Villains, his friends, Team Terror, his family, and taking down fake heroes. He dislikes the Meta Liberation Army, Fake Heroes, Hero Society, the Hero Commission, and quirk discrimination. Shuichi was born with a lizard-like mutation that made him an outcast from a young age. Ridiculed and rejected, even among other heteromorphs, he grew up isolated and disillusioned with heroes who seemed to protect only those who fit a certain image. The cruelty hardened him and led him to question a justice system that allowed people like him to suffer. Stain's words about false heroes resonated with his pain, and when the League of Villains offered him a place, he joined not for chaos but for recognition and dignity. Taking the name Spinner, he styled himself after Stain and became a symbol of heteromorph resistance, wielding a patchwork sword and standing as a loyal, determined soldier who still secretly longs for acceptance without conflict. Spinner's quirk sweet reads like a hybrid of reptilian and battlefield adaptations. He can cling to walls and sheer surfaces and blend into surroundings with perfect camouflage, remaining nearly invisible and silent. His skin can form overlapping, retractable scales that harden under stress to act as natural armor. Those scales can be shed and launched as hard projectiles to unbalance opponents. He can fuse melee weapons to his body to create hybrid constructs such as blade wheels or whip swords and absorb impacts into his skin to store kinetic energy for a stored-release strike. He heals rapidly from severe injuries and can boost his speed when needed. In a hybrid evolution called Blood Oath, brief contact with a target's blood allows him to mark and track that person over distance and, under specific conditions, to briefly impair them remotely. The longer the mark remains, the stronger his mental link becomes, allowing him to sense movement and intent. Another evolution, Hellscale, transforms his skin into thick, heat-radiant armor that channels fire-based attacks and can alter form for offense. This power can become dangerous if he loses control and enters a frenzied state. He can also unleash concentrated flames that clear obstacles or overwhelm defenses. He possesses a muscle augmentation that amplifies and manipulates his musculature for bursts of strength and endurance. Himiko Toga, villain named Vampire, is 18 years old and 157 centimeters tall, with light dirty blonde hair and golden yellow eyes. She functions as a close-range combatant and scout. Her abilities evolved from a transform quirk into full shape-shifting. By taking a brief sample of someone's blood, she can assume their form and, in some cases, aspects of their physical abilities. This evolution makes her a highly versatile infiltrator, able to become many people or animals for deception. She can solidify her own blood into thin, precise threads or needles and control them within a limited range. After brief exposure to someone's blood, she can exert short-lived influence over that person's movements for a few seconds. The more blood she consumes, the more her speed, reflexes, and strength are enhanced. And she heals from injuries at an accelerated rate. She also gains near-instant familiarity with weapons she summons, wielding them with surprising skill. Himiko's path is driven by a complex blend of longing and loneliness, seeking belonging and recognition within the same groups that empower her dangerous talents. Each profile reflects its bearer's motivations and struggles within a world that elevates spectacle over craft and marginalizes those who do not fit the ideal. Their alliances, scars, and ambitions propel them through confrontations that play out like stylized anime battles rather than graphic violence. Flashes of technique, sudden shifts in advantage, and dramatic displays of power that emphasize emotion and consequence without gruesome detail. The level of mastery increases with experience, allowing them to adapt their fighting style in real time. Muscle augmentation gives its user the ability to amplify, manipulate, and augment their muscle layers inside or outside their body. Himiko Toga likes the Legion of Villains, Team Terror, her friends, taking down fake heroes, Izuku as an ally, teasing people, teasing Big Sis Magna, her daughter Eri. Dislikes Katsuki Bakugo, the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, quirk discrimination. Story: Himiko's story is one of isolation, societal pressure, and ultimately the rejection of a forced, normal identity. Born with a blood-based quirk, she was judged harshly by her parents and by society, which pushed her to suppress who she really was. This led to deep emotional turmoil and self-hatred, and she came to see herself as a monster until she chose to embrace her true nature and became a villain. During her journey, she learned of the hero hunter Karma and was captivated by his ideals and his vision for a different world. Her curiosity about the man behind the mask drove her to seek him out. Upon finding the Legion, she met Izuku under a new name and discovered his identity. Her admiration grew into deeper feelings, which she expressed to Izuku, and they formed a close partnership. Name: Kana Tsutsumi. Villain name: Lady Nagant. Physical age: 18. Mental age: 34. Height: 171 centimeters. Hair color: pink and indigo. Eye color: purple. Role: second in command, acting leader when Izuku is not present, and long-range combatant. Quirks: rifle. The user can protrude and retract a rifle gun from their right elbow. The user bends the arm so the hand is at the shoulder and opens a cavity in the elbow, from which the rifle extends. The rifle appears organic, with a semi-liquid sinew forming a retractable bipod. The user loads bullets formed from their moldable hair into a hole that opens on the palm to reload ammunition. Airwalk. The user can stand on and control the air around them, granting levitation. Ballistic precision. The user can mark a target within line of sight. Projectiles fired by the user subtly curve through the air to home in on the marked target, even around obstacles within a limit. Silencer nullifies all sound generated within a small radius around the user, including gunshots and movement. Ricochet control. The user can mentally control the angle and force of bullet ricochets to hit targets around corners or create traps. Weapon master. The user can instantly summon, wield, and master any weapon with expertise, from swords to firearms, hammers, or unconventional items. Mastery increases with experience. Super regeneration. The user can regenerate injuries at incredible speeds. Bullet laser. The user can fire purple-colored lasers from their fingertips as direct blasts or curved beams. Likes. The Legion of Villains, Team Terror, her friends, taking down fake heroes, Izuku as an ally, teasing people, her daughter Eri. Dislikes. Katsuki Bakugo, the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, quirk discrimination. Story. Kana Tsutsumi, later known as Lady Nagant, was once a respected pro-hero who secretly carried out deadly covert operations for the Hero Public Safety Commission. Behind the scenes, she removed individuals labeled as threats to the image of Hero Society. Over time, the lies and the constant killing wore her down, and she became disillusioned with the system she had defended. One operation escalated and resulted in the death of a commission official, which led to her imprisonment in Tartarus. Izuku, moved by her story and motives, freed her and offered the chance to help reform the broken system. During a mission to stop, overhaul, and rescue Eri, Kana was caught in Eri's quirk and was de-aged to a younger physical state. She was surprised by the change but continued forward, and later formed a supportive partnership with Izuku. Name: Kaizome Akaguro. Villain name: Stain. Age 34. Height: 182 centimeters. Hair color: black. Color: fit. Role: close-range combatant and scout. Quirks: Blood Curdle allows the user to temporarily paralyze an opponent by ingesting their blood samples. The quirk also grants the user an extraordinarily long tongue with numerous small papillae. Reflect allows the user to absorb energy and send it back in the opposite direction. When struck, a spiraling wave of energy forms and rebounds the attack toward the opponent. Hemoweapon. The user can manipulate and solidify their own blood into bladed weapons such as daggers, spears, or whips. Blood Mirror. The user can momentarily mimic the quirk of anyone whose blood they ingest, but only for a few seconds. Mummification. The user can manipulate bandages wrapped around them to ensnare inanimate objects and form humanoid mummies to control in combat. Scanning. The user can search for and identify people's quirks to some extent and measure their power level using a heat signature-like vision. Metal manipulation. By placing a hand on any metallic surface, the user can manipulate objects in the environment to create structures for attack or defense. Muscle augmentation. The user can amplify, manipulate, and augment their muscle layers inside or outside their body. Super regeneration. The user can regenerate injuries at incredible speeds. Likes: the Legion of Villains, his family, his friends, Team Terror, ending fake heroes. Dislikes: the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the Hero Society, the Hero Commission, quirk discrimination. Story: Kaizome Akaguro, later known as Stain, was once a passionate student at UA High School who deeply admired true heroism. Over time, he grew disillusioned with the increasing number of so-called heroes who pursued fame and wealth instead of justice. Believing that Hero Society had become corrupt and shallow, he left UA and began a personal crusade to redefine what it meant to be a true hero. His convictions shaped his actions and made him a feared figure among those he considered imposters. End of revised text. Kaizome trained relentlessly, mastering his combat skills and refining his quirk, Blood Curdle, into a precise tool of judgment. One night, after a confrontation that left a pro-hero defeated, he encountered Izuku Midoriya and questioned Izuku's intentions. Izuku explained a story of betrayal, abuse of power, and a desire to reform a broken system. Seeing a kindred spirit in Izuku, someone driven by purpose rather than ego, Kaizome recognized the potential for real change. He joined Izuku's Team Terror, lending his influence and ideals to the rise of the Legion, believing it to be the path to true justice. Name: Anna Servino. Villain name, Angel. Age 23. Height, 161 centimeters. Hair color, light peach and black when using over-modification. Eye color, light blue. Normal appearance, her dress is dark red with gold trim. Role, support and healer when regeneration quirks fail. Quirks. Over-modification. Anna can amplify the quirk of an individual if they are compatible with her. This boosts the base abilities of the affected quirk and can, with enough contact, grant new effects. After Izuku evolved the quirk, she gained the ability to toggle it on and off at will, making no one incompatible. The modifications last 24 hours. Crimson Dominion evolved Fierce Wings. Anna's wings matured into a full-fledged arsenal of hyper-responsive, semi-autonomous feathers. Each feather becomes sharper, faster, and more durable, capable of specialized functions beyond flight and basic telekinetic manipulation. New abilities. Feather regeneration. She can regrow lost feathers rapidly, even during combat, using stored energy or protein-rich materials. Feather morphing. Feathers can shift shape mid-air, becoming blades, shields, or projectiles with explosive properties. Sensory network. Her feathers act as remote sensory devices, allowing her to perceive distant locations, making her effective at surveillance and ambush. Feather clone. By combining hundreds of feathers and controlling them precisely, she can create a temporary, semi-solid clone of herself. Crimson Storm. A high-powered ultimate move where she sheds a massive number of feathers in a spiraling barrage that slices through obstacles while generating intense pressure waves. This quirk evolved during an altercation involving Izuku and Hawks. Healing Aura. Anna emits a gentle, radiant energy field that accelerates cell regeneration and heals physical wounds within a certain radius. The aura soothes and can mend minor to moderate injuries quickly, stabilizing critical ones with sustained exposure. Super regeneration. She can regenerate severe injuries on her body at remarkable speeds. Overdrive. Anna can temporarily amplify another person's quirk or her own by touching them or focusing within a limited range. The boosted quirk operates at a significantly heightened level, increasing strength, speed, output, or precision depending on its nature. Alchemy. Anna can transmute the matter of any non-living object she touches. She can create nearly anything she desires, from a simple bullet to complex devices such as operational drones that record live video. The transmuted object can alter its state of matter, even becoming a kinetic energy form capable of producing powerful shockwaves. Gold generation. She can generate unlimited gold objects, with the drawback that she must draw energy from her surroundings to do so. Likes. The Legion of Villains, her new family, her friends, Team Terror, and her boyfriend Julio Gandini. Dislikes. The Meta Liberation Army, Fake Heroes, Hero Society, the Hero Commission, Quirk Discrimination, and the Galini Family Mafia. Backstory. Anna is the daughter of the wealthy Servino family. Her rare and volatile quirk drew the attention of Dark Might. Once a cheerful young woman with a bright future, she was especially close to her loyal butler Julio, who was like family to her. Everything changed when she was kidnapped by Dark Might and his followers, who sought to exploit her power. Isolated and manipulated, Anna slipped into despair, her spirit nearly broken by fear and control. Her fate turned when Izuku and the Legion, alongside Team Terror, launched a daring rescue and brought her back from the edge. Reunited with Julio, her butler, best friend, and the one she secretly loved, Anna began to heal. She now serves as a crucial support member of Team Terror, using her skills and compassion to help rebuild a better world. Name, Julio Gandini. Villain name, Marksmith. Age 24. Height, 176 centimeters. Hair color, brownish red. Eye color, greenish blue. Normal appearance, refined and composed. Role, strategist, warp gate, and protector for Anna. Quirks. Neutralization. Julio can temporarily nullify a target's quirk by touching them. This ability is activated from his left arm and appears as a bright light blue glow in the palm. The more powerful a quirk is, the longer and brighter the glow lasts. Guardian's Grasp. He can generate invisible force fields or kinetic barriers with his hands, allowing him to shield others or deflect attacks. Time slip. Julio can accelerate his personal time for brief moments, allowing him to move at extreme speed to dodge or react. Iron oath. When he vows to protect someone, his body enters a hardened, knight-like state, skin becoming armor-like, reflexes sharpening, and strength multiplying. Super regeneration. He can regenerate severe injuries on his body at incredible speeds. Any damage he suffered before gaining this quirk remains, such as scars or prior injuries, which preserve his history and identity. Black lightning. Julio can generate and manipulate arcs of black-colored electricity that are denser, hotter, and more erratic than regular lightning. These discharges can short out technology, stun enemies, and cause heavy structural disruption. Together, Anna and Julio form a protective and strategic core of Team Terror, supporting the Legion's efforts with healing, amplification, and tactical control. Their loyalty to one another and to their allies helps shape the group's attempts to challenge the established order through decisive, determined action. Unlike common electricity, Giulio Gandini's corrupted charge crackled with a strange, unsettling energy that left scorched marks and hung in the air like a heavy promise. He could shape that energy into several distinct effects: a palm-borne air cannon that released devastating shockwaves of air pressure, a rivet stab that sent black tendrils traced with red fissures from his fingertips or other parts of his body, moving like animated cables, infrared senses that let him read the heat and layout of his surroundings, and a warp gate that manifested as a dark foggy portal, transporting whatever it touched to a nearby location. The warp gate functioned reliably, though it was not as powerful as the most notorious users of that style of quirk. Julio was born into a long line of retainers who had served the Servino family for generations. He was raised with discipline, grace, and a deep sense of duty, trained in etiquette, combat, and quirk control. Quiet and observant, he excelled behind the scenes, watching over Anna Servino like a protective older brother and becoming her closest confidant. When Anna was kidnapped and taken from her family, Julio blamed himself for failing to protect her and vanished from public view. He spent years working in the shadows, gathering information and following leads until he finally reunited with her after her rescue by Izuku and the Legion. Their reunion rekindled a restrained but deep loyalty, and Julio chose to join Team Terror to stand by Anna. Calm, deadly, and utterly devoted, he served as the Legion's strategist and protector, a shadow guardian who fought not for glory but for the person he had sworn to protect. Danjuro Tabita, known as Gentle Criminal, once pursued a simple dream: to be a hero who inspired hope and change. He possessed an unusual mix of abilities. His touch could grant elasticity to objects, and his stagecraft let him alter the appearance of an area within a fixed radius, creating theatrical props, lighting, and sound to shape perception. His gentle reality gave his words a transient power to alter how events were experienced, and his physical capabilities could be boosted dramatically with Brawn Boost and Kinetic Booster enhancements. Velvet Rebound allowed him to absorb kinetic force from impacts and redirect it as counterattacks or shockwaves. He also had rapid regenerative ability and a potent range technique called Impure Beam, a powerful light-based attack that could cause widespread destruction if unleashed at full strength, though using it at maximum risked serious backlash to Danjuro himself. He favored calm rituals like tea and found comfort in making videos with Manami, who had become his closest companion. Danjuro's path to Gentle Criminal began with repeated rejection by the hero system and a public setback that left him disillusioned. Branded by society for a well-intentioned failure, he decided to expose the hypocrisy of a system that valued spectacle over substance. He staged elegant, non-lethal heists to highlight flaws in hero society and to stand up for those overlooked by the public eye. Alongside Manami, whose loyalty and affection renewed his courage, Danjuro found purpose. His convictions later drew Izuku's attention and a chance to join a cause aimed at reshaping the world. Manami Tabita, known as La Brava, carried complementary gifts and a quiet resilience. Her abilities included a love quirk that could strengthen a chosen target when she expressed sincere feelings, a data dive that let her interface with digital systems directly, and charm that allowed subtle emotional influence when she spoke earnestly. she could break complex codes with uncanny pattern recognition, sync and control electronic devices with her mind, emit radio waves to disrupt communications, and form durable invisible barriers for protection. Like Danjuro, she healed rapidly from injuries. Manami had once been a shy and lonely girl who struggled to make friends and often felt invisible. Her connection with Danjuro gave her purpose and confidence. Together they built a partnership that balanced theatricality and technical skill. All three shared dislikes for the Meta-Liberation Army, phony heroes, and the structures of the Hero Commission and Hero Society that enabled discrimination. They found community in the Legion of Villains and Team Terror, drawing strength from one another and protecting the people they cared about. Their actions leaned toward calculated, sometimes theatrical confrontations rather than wanton harm, with each member using their talents to shield allies, disrupt oppressive systems, and hold fast to the ideals that still mattered to them. Where gaps in plans or consequences appeared, they filled them with quiet determination and pragmatic adjustments. The trio's stories intertwined through loyalty, regret, redemption, and a shared belief that protecting the vulnerable and exposing injustice were worth the risks they chose to take. Bullied and rejected, Manami found solace on the internet, where she discovered the videos of Gentle Criminal. His ideals and charisma resonated deeply with her. Inspired by his message of challenging a broken society, she reached out and pledged her loyalty, becoming his partner in crime under the name La Brava. Her devotion awakened a confidence and sense of purpose she had never known, and she used her hacking skills to support Gentle's carefully non-lethal schemes. Though branded a villain by the public, Manami saw herself as a fighter for justice and a believer in Gentle's dream of a better world. Their bond grew stronger, and they were eventually noticed by Izuku Midoriya, who invited them to join the Legion to help reform Hero Society. Now Manami uses her mind, heart, and unwavering loyalty to support the cause and protect those she believes in. Hitoshi Shinso, known by the alias Hive Mind, is 18 years old, approximately 177 centimeters tall, with indigo hair and purple eyes. Before the USJ incident, he wore a black hood as part of his appearance. The darker purple accents of his villain suit are imagined as deep red in tone. He serves as Izuku's right-hand man. Hitoshi's quirks and abilities. Neural Override enhances his original mind-influencing quirk by enabling multi-target control, indirect activation, and limited emotional influence over those affected. It can be triggered through auditory cues such as pre-recorded speech, synchronized communication devices, or whispers, provided the target hears and registers the sound as directed at them. Rivet Dominion is a severely amplified variant of Rivet Stab, combining stored physical enhancements and spatial control effects. Instead of simple projectile spikes, this version allows the generation of large, biomechanical rivets that can be remotely controlled and used to reshape the battlefield into hazardous terrain. Air Cannon lets him release powerful shockwaves of air pressure from his palms. Impact Recoil reverses the effect of an opposing physical force, redirecting impact back toward the source. Neuro Boost is a full-body augmentation that optimizes the nervous system, muscles, and reflexes, granting precise, explosive control over his body for enhanced speed, agility, coordination, and sensory input. Neurofrequency Dominion expands his control over electromagnetic signals, permitting manipulation, scanning, and disruption of both electronic systems and organic neural communications. He can emit directed or broad pulses that scramble electronics, interfere with quirk support gear, or momentarily stun opponents by disrupting neural activity. Airwalk grants levitation and fine control of the air beneath him. Super Regeneration allows rapid recovery from injuries. Weapon Mastery permits instantaneous summoning and expert use of weapons, adapting his skill with experience. Black Chain generates shadow-like chains that behave like flowing, energy-infused metal for offense, defense, and utility at varying ranges. Black Lightning produces arcs of dark-colored electricity that can short out technology, stun opponents, and cause structural damage without graphic detail. Energy Saver enables his body to function with minimal nutrition and rest. Fierce Gains can harden his muscles to exceptional toughness. Bullet Laser allows him to fire colored laser beams from his fingertips, with the ability to curve beams as needed. Kinetic Booster X10 multiplies the kinetic energy he can generate and release. Hitoshi wanted strength so he could help Izuku and work toward fixing the Hero Society. He values his friends, the Legion of Villains, Team Terror, Sleep, Cats, the Hero Eraserhead, and teasing his best friend Izuku. He dislikes the Meta Liberation Army, fake heroes, the current hero system, the Hero Commission, quirk discrimination, and having his naps interrupted. Hitoshi's history explains his motivations. Labeled a villain by everyone except his family and 3 friends because of his quirk, he lost his family in an attack that involved both heroes and villains. Placed in foster care afterward, he was treated as an outcast and grew cold and distant, harboring resentment toward those around him. One person repeatedly tried to help him, but he kept her at arm's length, offering only thanks before withdrawing. Years later, after reconnecting with Izuku and learning what had happened to him, Hitoshi chose to join his brother in purpose and loyalty. He became one of the first to receive a vast number of quirks and took his place as Izuku's right-hand man. He did not seek second-in-command responsibilities. He enjoyed sleeping too much for that role, but he was content with his new life and family. His only lingering worry was what would happen if he met Reiko again. He hoped she would not seek revenge. He is among the most loyal members of the Legion and Team Terror. Kyudai Garaki, known as the Doctor, is an ageless presence within the Legion and Team Terror. His apparent age spans over a century, and his listed height is roughly 111 centimeters. His exact measurements remain uncertain. He has blue eyes and serves as the creator of Nomus and the medical and experimental specialist for the groups. Kyudai's quirks and abilities. Life Force slows his aging, effectively doubling his lifespan and allowing him to appear much younger than his true age. Overhaul grants him the ability to disassemble and reassemble matter with his bare hands, allowing precise alteration of physical structures. Biotrigger lets him activate or amplify quirks remotely in subjects previously injected with a specific enzyme, enabling controlled awakening of abilities in Nomus or altered beings during conflicts. Conscious duplication allows him to copy his consciousness into artificial brains or computer systems, enabling continued control of remote creations or ongoing experiments even if his physical form is compromised. His work with Nomus and experimental projects continues to shape the Legion's capabilities and strategies. Kyudai Garaki was a brilliant scientist who grew disillusioned with a society he saw as corrupt, unjust, and blindly loyal to flawed heroes. He believed true progress was stifled by outdated morals and a system that protected the powerful while ignoring the weak. When he met All for One, Garaki found a leader who shared his vision of reshaping the world through strength, order, and science. He faked his death and went underground, devoting himself to creating Nomu and advancing quirk science to reduce inequality. Upon meeting Izuku, Garaki discovered that the boy's unique version of All for One could stabilize Nomu, incorporating more than 90 quirks. This discovery pushed Garaki and his allies to work tirelessly on stronger, more efficient constructs. They developed a method using only blood and tissue samples that allowed greater control over a Nomu's form and enabled high-end production within months. By incorporating research stolen from Overhaul, they learned how to artificially craft quirks and accelerated their progress toward a new social order. Nomuranks. Low-end Nomu. Low-end Nomu exhibit animalistic intelligence or almost no sentience and cannot think or reason. Their power varies but is generally limited to basic combat functions. They follow simple commands and are often deployed as expendable soldiers. Middle-end Nomu. Middle-end Nomu can process more complex directives and display a degree of tactical behavior. They are more dangerous than low-end models due to a better balance of power and control, and they can operate semi-independently in combat. High-end Nomu. High-end Nomu possess human-level or higher intelligence. They can reason, strategize, and communicate. Extremely powerful and often endowed with multiple quirks and rapid regenerative ability, they act independently and sometimes retain aspects of the personalities used in their creation. Generations. Genwa Nomu. The first Nomu were created using Garaki's early methods. While generally weaker than later models, they are now rarer because many were destroyed, repurposed into prototypes, or converted into Gen 2 units. Most Gen 1 constructs show distinct cranial modifications and a range of skin tones, with higher-tier specimens displaying darker pigmentation. Nomu are grown from blood and tissue samples taken from both pros and villains. They possess more quirks than Gen 1, are stronger, and use abilities more efficiently. Most Gen 2 Nomu were developed from earlier low-end and middle-end templates. They lack the pronounced cranial exposure seen in the first generation, though higher-tier units still display darker skin while lower-tier ones retain varied coloration. Gen 2 Nomu examples. Codename: Blade Master. Height: 190 centimeters. Rank: High-end. DNA used: Shinya Kamihara, Edge Shot. Appearance: tall and imposing, with weaponized limbs and a streamlined, combat-ready silhouette. Quirks and capabilities. Foldabody. The body can thin and stretch, allowing limbs to extend and reshape for combat or reach. Blade Armory. Metal blades can be generated and reconfigured from the user's body into swords, daggers, and chains. Edge Mastery. The user exhibits perfect control over blades, including precise throwing and cutting angles. Kinetic Perception. Heightened senses enable prediction of opponents' movements by reading subtle cues in motion and air currents. Instant Sheath. Blades can be instantaneously moved into and out of a separate dimensional space for surprise attacks or disarming. Durasteel Skin. The body is reinforced and highly resistant to common weapons and explosions while appearing outwardly normal. Super Regeneration. Rapid healing allows the user to recover from severe damage in short order. Arm Blade. The forearm can transform into a blade for direct melee use. Iron Marrow Arsenal. Hybrid. The user can control skeletal structure to form hardened appendages, armor, and external constructs, reinforced by a metallic compound for exceptional durability. Strong Arm. Extremely rapid and powerful shoulder-driven strikes grant high-impact punches. Spring-like limbs X5. Muscles store and release force like coils to deliver explosive strikes. Multiplier. Multiple arms can be produced from the body for increased combat versatility. Impact Recoil. The user can reverse the force of an attack back onto an opponent. Photon Edge. Hybrid blades of solidified light can be generated and charged to build kinetic energy, releasing powerful explosive effects when discharged. Eclipse Form. Hybrid. The body can shift between light and shadow states or blend them, granting stealthy movement, energy projection, and brief defensive advantages. Codename: Dr. Zero. Height: 179 centimeters. Rank: High-end. Made from Kai Chisaki, Overhaul. Appearance: white hair and visible scarring across the body, conveying a clinical, formidable presence. Quirks and capabilities. Overhaul. The ability to disassemble and reassemble matter by touch, usable for both manipulation and combat. Biopsy. A single touch scans a subject's biological status, detecting diseases, quirk mutations, injuries, and genetic irregularities, and stores that data for later analysis. Quirk Graft. Quirk factors can be removed and implanted like biological components, transplanting traits between hosts with expert precision. Forearms. The user naturally possesses forearms for increased dexterity and combat options. Intellect Amplify. Cognitive functions can be temporarily enhanced to reach genius-level processing, improving reasoning, memory, and predictive modeling. Brainstorm. A trance-like state slows perceived time, allowing extensive scenario simulation before decisions are made. Info Injection. Knowledge can be rapidly absorbed by touching written or digital material, accelerating learning. Bioreconstruct. The user can restructure the biology of living organisms by touch, adjusting muscles, bones, organs, and nerves with surgical control. Genetic Sculptor. The user can modify their own genetic makeup to adopt physiological traits studied from other species or individuals. Pathogen Craft. The user can synthesize biological agents internally for tactical use, creating custom pathogens or toxins as a weaponized quirk. Super Regeneration. Rapid healing enables recovery from severe injuries over a short PRD. Overcut. An evolved combat-focused application of the overhaul ability optimized for fighting. The work of Garaki and his collaborators reshaped the boundaries of quirk science. Their creations and methods altered the balance of power, pushing both heroes and villains to adapt to a world in which engineered abilities and rapid biological modification were tools of influence and control. A tense race unfolded between those who sought to preserve the old order and those who believed a calculated, enforced change would bring a new kind of equality. User can slice through anything at a molecular level with precision air, ground, flesh, or even energy-based quirks. Muscle Architect allows the user to restructure their muscles in real time, thickening, elongating, or tightening them for speed, power, or flexibility. Hybrid Iron Ossify. The user's quirk enables rapid generation, manipulation, and weaponization of their own bones. Unlike natural bone, their skeletal structure is laced with living metal, making it stronger than steel and capable of reshaping under their control. The user can forge claws, blades, armor, and drills from their skeleton, regrow broken parts quickly, and harden their structure for defense or offense, functioning like a living surgical instrument made for war. This ability is the result of Ossify Surge merged with metal bones. Ossify Surge allows the user to rapidly grow and manipulate their own bones outside their body into armor, spikes, or weapons similar to a surgical exoskeleton. Story. After everything Overhaul had done to Eri, Izuku reacted with overwhelming fury and struck Overhaul down. The confrontation ended with Overhaul's death. Izuku was left in shock and burdened with guilt over taking a life, even though Overhaul's actions had been monstrous. The Legion recovered Overhaul's body and delivered it to their lab, where he was transformed into a Nomu similar in function to Kurogiri. This new type, designated Zero, was fully loyal to the Legion and Team Terror. As one of the first next-generation Nomu, Zero retained full intelligence and memory. Zero no longer considered himself Overhaul. He believed that identity belonged to a delusional man obsessed with control, someone who sought to erase quirks and rule through fear. While Zero dismissed Overhaul's ideology as madness, he acknowledged the scientific progress Overhaul had made, including a flawed method of quirk creation called Project Genesis. Zero viewed that legacy as driven by ego rather than reason. Calm, methodical, and courteous in demeanor, he began working closely with Dr. Garaki on further Nomu development and assisted the Legion and Team Terror when needed. In time, even Eri came to terms with his presence. She gradually stopped fearing him and, in a moment of grace, chose to forgive him for what had been done in the past. Zen Shigaraki All for One. Age, 121 plus. Height, 225 centimeters. Hair color, eye color, crimson red. All for One allows the user to take quirks from anyone they touch for storage or transfer them to others. Red streams of energy indicate when a quirk is being taken or given. The ability also enables the user to wield multiple quirks simultaneously. Giving and taking quirks is done by touch through a hole in the palm. Family. Wife, Inko Shigaraki. Biological son, Yoichi Shigaraki, formerly Izuku Midoriya. Adopted son, Tomura Shigaraki. Daughter, Izumi Shigaraki. Adopted granddaughter, Eri Shigaraki. Likes: his family, the Legion, Team Terror, his future daughters-in-law. Dislikes: those who hunt his family, Overhaul, not the Nomu, Katsuki Bakugo, the Hero Society and Commission, All Might, Fake Heroes, the Meta Liberation Army, and quirk discrimination. Story. Zen Shigaraki was born at the dawn of the quirk era. His quirk, originally called Give and Take, let him remove and gift quirks to others, though at first he could only store what he took until it was passed on. As people sought him out hoping to be freed from burdens, the government saw an opportunity to create super soldiers and raided his home. The attack left his family dead except for his younger brother. In his grief and rage, Zen's quirk evolved, granting him the ability to use the stolen powers himself. He unleashed those powers in a fierce, overwhelming display that routed the soldiers and allowed him to escape with his wounded brother. To protect his brother from the chaos, Zen gave him a powerful stockpiling quirk and hid him away, believing confinement was the only way to keep him safe. That quirk would later evolve into the force that opposed Zen, One for All. Though his brother understood Zen's intent to protect him, he deeply disagreed with the methods and felt betrayed by the confinement. When freedom fighters later found and freed him, he came to see Zen as both protector and oppressor, setting them on opposing paths. In a final, tragic act of loyalty, his brother sacrificed himself to save Zen. Racked with guilt and loss, Zen hunted down the wielders of One for All for a time, desperate to undo what he had started. He pursued them relentlessly until the sixth user, then finally gave up, worn down by grief and regret. Afterward, Zen met Inko. They fell in love, married, and had a son Izuku. Zen adored him and wanted nothing but his happiness. When he attempted to pass on a quirk to Izuku in the forest, All Might intercepted them and their clash left Zen broken and Izuku without a quirk for most of his life. Haunted and helpless, Zen watched from the shadows until the day Izuku nearly took his own life. Now, Zen moves quietly behind the scenes, aiding the Legion and Team Terror as he works to reshape a world that once shattered his own. Inko Shigaraki. Mental age, 40. Physical age, 29. Hair color, 3. Color, 3. Polar pole is a powerful telekinetic amalgam that allows the user to generate fields of attraction and repulsion, exerting precise control over objects. The user can pull things toward themselves, push them away, immobilize foes, deflect projectiles, and create barriers by repelling attacks. With careful control, the user can balance opposing forces to simulate levitation. Life force doubles the user's lifespan, causing them to age more slowly and appear much younger than they are. Super regeneration allows rapid healing from injuries, including the regrowth of missing limbs at extraordinary speed. Family. Husband, Zen Shigaraki. Biological son, Yoichi Shigaraki, formerly Izuku Midoriya. Adopted son, Tomura Shigaraki. Daughter, Izumi Shigaraki. Adopted granddaughter, Eri Shigaraki. Likes. Her family, the Legion, Team Terror. Dislikes. Those who hunt her family, Overhaul, not the Nomu, Katsuki Bakugo, the Hero Society and Commission, All Might, for what he did to Zen. Fake heroes, the Meta Liberation Army, quirk discrimination. Story. Inko loved her husband and son and never wanted Izuku to suffer, but he did bullied and isolated for being quirkless. She remained devoted to her family and to protecting them by any means she could. The stress of raising a son without a quirk, combined with the weight of society's judgment, slowly wore Inko down. She let herself go, pouring everything into her work just to stay afloat. Things worsened after her husband was reported killed in a clash between heroes and villains. The company he had worked for provided generous support to her and Izuku, but Inko continued to seek work, feeling it was her responsibility. She wanted her son to be happy, but she could not support his dream of becoming a hero, especially after learning that a hero, not a villain, had taken her husband's life. When Izuku turned 15, everything changed. He returned home with snow-white hair and crimson eyes, bearing the unmistakable likeness of his father. Moments later, Zen himself stepped through the door, alive and wearing a distinctive breathing mask. After a long explanation, Inko finally learned the truth about what her son had endured and who her husband truly was. Despite the shock, her love for them never wavered. She embraced Zen's return and supported Izuku's new dream not to become a hero, but to work toward fixing a broken society. After they disappeared again, Inko encountered Tomura and soon realized he was her nephew. With warmth and patience she helped him face the pain of his past and took on a motherly role within the Legion and Team Terror. She cared for each member deeply, and when she met Eri she welcomed the girl with open arms, quickly becoming a devoted grandmother figure. Thanks to Eri's quirk, Inko and Zen were restored to their prime, and their lives opened onto a new chapter. Not long after, Inko became P-Arginanti again, and their daughter Izumi was born, bringing new light into their unusual but loving family. Izumi Shigaraki is 2 years old, with green hair and crimson-red eyes. She resembles a small, long-haired version of Izuku and adores her parents and brothers. Still too young to understand the truth, Izumi often wonders why her brothers have so many scars and why they wear intimidating costumes. She is unaware of her family's dark past or that her brothers are viewed by the world as dangerous supervillains. To her, they are simply her loving, if mysterious, family. Sheltered by their protection, Izumi lives in a gentler world than the one her siblings grew up in. Yoichi Shigaraki, formerly Izuku Midoriya and known as Karma among villains, is 18 years old and stands tall with snow-white hair and crimson-red eyes. He bears a large X-shaped scar across his chest. His appearance is marked by a hood and a face mask that lend him an enigmatic presence. Yoichi's core quirk evolved through stages. As Quirksmith, he could copy and alter any quirk but only make a few alterations before the copied ability degraded and became unusable. Any copied quirk was a one-to-one copy of the original at the moment of copying. This ability had been created during an attempt to replicate another powerful quirk but failed in ways that ultimately granted Yoichi this power. Over time, Quirksmith developed into Quirkforge. As Quirkforge, Yoichi could copy quirks and alter them without the previous limitation, provided the core effect remained the same. This made him a kind of quirk engineer. He could modify a quirk's method, energy source, form, or physical manifestations while preserving its essential result: freezing, emitting fire, teleporting, and so on. Quirkforge allowed him to bypass weaknesses, tailor quirks to specific strategies or environments, and let copied quirks evolve independently after acquisition. Examples of this transformation included adapting a fire-breathing ability so that flames could be emitted from arms or feet rather than the mouth, or converting a simple blink teleport into a shadow-like melting and reappearing effect that added stealth and flair while still functioning as teleportation. Alongside Quirkforge, another formidable system of abilities existed. All for One 2.0 allowed a user to take, give, clone, merge, combine, enhance, and degrade quirks. When taking a quirk, the user received a copy of its original form. The quirk would evolve after being taken. When giving a quirk to someone else, the recipient's body adjusted to handle the new ability, building resistance over time. The clone function duplicated any quirks the user already possessed. Merge and combine let the user fuse quirks to create new ones or strengthen existing abilities. The enhance and degrade functions affected other people's quirks directly. One above all was a synthetic quirk developed in a lab to surpass its predecessor by removing flaws and focusing purely on power accumulation. Unlike similar legendary abilities, it carried no mental imprints from previous users. It functioned as a pure force that fed on other quirks to convert their energy into raw physical power. Its capabilities included steady power accumulation through absorption of quirk energy, granting superhuman strength, speed, durability, and explosive mobility, and converting absorbed quirks into fuel without retaining them. This process consumed those quirks, making it a one-way transformation. One above all emphasized stability and control, producing no physical backlash to its user. Throughout these upheavals, Inko's devotion and quiet strength held the family together. She remained a steady presence, tender with Izumi, patient with Yoichi, and caring toward the troubled nephew who became like a son. Their household, shaped by loss and secrecy, grew into an uncommon refuge where love and rebuilding took precedence over the world's judgments. Engineered to be stable from the beginning, One above all allowed even inexperienced users to access immense power without injury. Izuku could strengthen the quirk by feeding other quirks into its stockpile, a process he could control. One above all's power, like any quirk, had limits. The user could exceed them only briefly. With DNA obtained from Toshinori Yagi, the user's peak strength would match that of the ninth wielder of One for All, and by feeding it quirk energy the power could rise further for a short time. Family. Father, Zen Shigaraki. Mother, Inko Shigaraki. Biological sister, Izumi Shigaraki. Adopted brother, biological cousin, Tomura Shigaraki. Adopted daughter, Eri Shigaraki. Romantic partners, Himiko Toga and Kana Tsutsumi. Likes: his family, the Legion of Villains, Team Terror, his friends, his daughter, All Might, still a fan, his romantic partners, working on Next Generation Nomus, he only hates how the old ones were made, his old friends. Dislikes: the methods used to create the old Nomus, anyone who hunts his family, Overhaul, not the Nomu, Katsuki Bakugo, the Hero Society and Commission, All Might, for what he did to his father, fake heroes, the Meta Liberation Army, and quirk discrimination. Izuku was despised by nearly everyone except his 3 friends and his family. Over time those friends drifted away because of their own family problems, and Izuku was left alone. Each day became a trial. He endured regular beatings, waking to another mark against him with every sunrise. His grades were sabotaged by teachers and classmates alike, making him appear to fail no matter how hard he worked. No one intervened. Teachers ignored him, the police dismissed his complaints, and heroes those meant to protect looked the other way simply because he was quirkless. He came to hate them all and the society that allowed it. He wanted to scream, to fight, to break free, but no one came for him. Only his mother showed any care. One day, after Katsuki Bakugo told him to end his life and the cruelty spread across the school, Izuku attempted suicide. He was rescued by his father, Zen, the man he had not seen in 10 years. Zen pulled him back from the edge, revealed truths about their family, and offered him a path to power. Izuku refused the simple path to heroism. He did not want to be a hero in the way society defined one. He wanted to change the world, to fix the system that cast people aside. He wanted to be the kind of person who would stand up for the outcasts, the broken, the forgotten. From that determination he founded the Legion. He built Team Terror. He did not aim to be a symbol of hope but a symbol of upheaval, the symbol of chaos. Name: Tomura Shigaraki. Old name: Tenko Shimura. Villain name: Reaper. Age: 24. Height: 175 centimeters. Hair color: light blue. Eye color: gray. Role: second in command and acting leader when Izuku is not present. Decay and restore. The user can destabilize matter on contact, causing it to rapidly fall apart in a burst of non-detailed energy. Restore can reverse those effects within 24 hours. Super regeneration. The user recovers from injuries at accelerated rates. Overhaul. The user can disassemble and reassemble matter with their hands. Corrupt. The user can infuse objects or people with an insidious energy that gradually undermines mental stability or structural integrity. Ruin chain. When decay affects something, the destabilization can spread to similar materials nearby in an anime-style chain reaction. Disable. The user can switch off one or more of their own quirks. Weather manipulation. The user can influence weather patterns. Black wing. The user can sprout immense black wings that grant free-form flight at high speeds. Black lightning. The user generates dense, erratic black electricity that discharges with explosive force, capable of shorting technology, stunning opponents, and damaging structures. When combined with corrupt, the effects are amplified and harder to recover from. Spear-like bones. The user can produce cone-shaped bone-like spears on their body for use in combat. Likes: games with his family, his parents, his brother, the Legion of Villains, Kurogiri, his friends, Team Terror, and his sister. Dislikes: the Hero Society and Commission, his old father, UA for fostering fake heroes, All Might, fake heroes in general, the Meta Liberation Army, and quirk discrimination. Tomura endured abuse from his father, who resented his fascination with heroes. When his decay quirk first surfaced, it activated catastrophically and cost his family their lives. The event was sudden and devastating without graphic detail. All for one later took him in, changing the course of his life. When Tomura met Izuku and Inko, they became a new family for him. Together with Izuku he helped form the Legion of Villains. Tomura led the Legion in the field while Izuku commanded Team Terror. He is fiercely devoted to his family and views the Legion as an extension of that bond. Name: Eri Shigaraki. Age: 6. Height: 110 centimeters. Hair color: pale blue-gray. Eye color: red. Rewind. The user can revert a living being's body toward an earlier state. Disable. The user can turn off one or more of their own quirks. Likes: her family, the Legion, Team Terror, and her caretakers. Dislikes: Overhaul, the Shai Hasaikai, the Hero Society and Commission, fake heroes, the Meta Liberation Army, and quirk discrimination. Eri's life was tragic from the start. Her mother abandoned her after a catastrophic accident linked to Eri's quirk, leaving Eri in the care of her grandfather, the head of the Shai Hasaikai. Kai Chisaki, known as Overhaul, took an interest in her, seeing an opportunity to manipulate her quirk for his own designs. He subjected Eri to invasive experiments aimed at exploiting the unique nature of her blood and ability. She endured repeated, harmful procedures and long periods of isolation that left her frightened and withdrawn. One day she escaped and encountered Izuku and Himiko Toga while they were together. Before they could fully help, Overhaul intercepted and took Eri away. 2 days later a rescue mission was launched. Eri had been found and saved by Kana Tsutsumi, but in a moment of panic Eri's quirk activated and accidentally de-aged Kana into a 16-year-old. Kana nevertheless protected her, and Eri was brought to safety. She was given a new life and a loving home, with 2 mothers who cared deeply for her. Over time, Eri began to heal and even learned to use her quirk to restore her grandparents' youth, giving her grandfather a second chance at life and fatherhood. For the first time in years, Eri truly smiled. Melissa Shield had learned a great deal over the past 3 years. Her uncle, the once unstoppable All Might, had been gravely injured in a battle with the villain known as All for One. That villain, long believed dead, had been operating behind the scenes again. Melissa also learned that a quirkless boy named Izuku Midoriya and his mother had mysteriously vanished, and All Might suspected All for One was involved. After that revelation, Melissa had been offered One for All, the very power that had made her uncle the symbol of peace. The offer was overwhelming, but Melissa accepted. The chance to become a true hero and save people with a smile was a dream she could not ignore. She spent 2 brutal years conditioning her body to endure One for All, then another year learning to control the power. Much had changed since then. Melissa met previous wielders of One for All and unlocked 2 of their quirks, Black Whip and Danger Sense. Yoichi Shigaraki, the first user, warned her of a looming threat even more dangerous than All for One. Frightened but determined, Melissa trained harder to become strong enough to protect others and to become the new symbol of peace. Now she sat on the bus with Class 1A, headed for the USJ, the unforeseen simulation joint. She chatted with her classmates, though one of them constantly tested her patience. More than once she imagined using One for All at full force to launch him into orbit. His name was Katsuki Bakugo, loud, arrogant, and convinced of his own superiority, always muttering about someone named Deku. Melissa did not know all the history, only that he had been a bully in elementary school and that 2 students from Class 1B shared a heavy guilt over a friend who had vanished years ago with his mother. Tsuyu Azui spoke to Melissa and explained that she tended to be blunt and usually said exactly what she thought. Melissa, nervous, smiled and told Tsuyu that it was okay and asked what she meant. Tsuyu responded that Melissa's quirk felt a lot like All Might's. Melissa started and flusteredly explained that her quirk was a stockpile type that converted her body's energy into different forms, and that if she pushed it too far she would end up breaking herself, unlike her uncle. Tsuyu regarded her with a calm, unreadable expression. The bus came to a stop at the USJ. Everyone rose to disembark, and Melissa exhaled, thinking that the close call had been too near. Another bus arrived and Class 1B began to step off. Itsuka Kendo led the group, followed by Setsuna Tokage and the rest of their classmates. Nito Monoma opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Tetsu smacked the back of his neck and grumbled about how unmanly Monoma's behavior was. Eijiro Kirishima chuckled as he walked over and agreed. The 2 classes gathered at the USJ entrance as the Pro Hero 13 came down to greet them. Achiko Uraraka's eyes sparkled at the sight of 13, and Tsuyu noted that someone in the group was clearly a fan. Setsuna and Reiko remembered a younger Izuku, who had once gushed over pro heroes with the same enthusiasm. The memory brought a quiet ache to their chests before they wiped their eyes and followed 13 inside. 13 began to explain the importance and potential dangers of quirks in real combat when the lights flickered and briefly went out. When they returned, a swirling portal of dark purple mist formed in the USJ plaza. The portal expanded until a hand reached through and a figure stepped out. Silence fell over the students as fear tightened their chests. The man who emerged was Reaper, the leader of the Legion of Villains. More villains followed him through the mist. On Reaper's right stood Dabi in a crisp white coat. On his left stood Mr. Compress with his hands calmly in his pockets. Behind them loomed a towering figure, an enormous, black-skinned humanoid larger than even All Might. The creature's appearance was monstrous and intimidating, with a fearsome mouth and massive wings folded against its back. Its presence alone made the students shrink back. As those 4 villains stood in the plaza, dozens more poured from the mist. Villains of all shapes and sizes appeared, each more threatening in appearance than the last. Then, as the final figure stepped through, the purple mist flared and spread, surrounding the students, Vlad King, Aizawa, and 13 in a thick fog. Reaper declared to the gathered students and staff of UA High that the Legion of Villains had come for one purpose: to destroy the symbol of peace, All Might. A wave of fear swept through everyone at the clear statement of intent. The mist shifted and 2 glowing golden eyes formed within it. The figure identified himself as Kurogiri and announced that it was his duty to distribute them. A calm voice announced that they would be taken to the proper locations where their comrades awaited, then said goodbye. Before anyone could react, a thick mist surged forward and wrapped around the students and teachers. One by one, they vanished. Melissa found herself falling into the flood zone, plummeting through dense mist and water vapor. Her body hit the surface hard and she briefly submerged. She surfaced gasping, scanning the murky water for others. A sudden surge of danger sense warned her that something was wrong. A villain lunged through the water with an arm raised to strike, but a green blur intercepted it. Tsuyu Azui kicked the attacker and used her long tongue to grab Melissa, pulling her from the water in a single swift motion. Tsuyu leapt to a nearby boat and gently placed Melissa beside 2 other students who had made it out. Melissa, panting, thanked Tsuyu. Tsuyu responded calmly and urged Melissa to stay close, warning that there were more people in the water. Melissa turned to look at the other 2 students. Rody Soul stood nearby with Pino, a small pink bird-like creature always connected to his soul. Pino could transform into a larger phoenix-like bird of pink fire and create protective fire shields. Setsuna Tokage was there as well, whose lizard-like quirk allowed her to split her body into multiple pieces and control them. Rody, likely dry from flying on Pino, checked on Melissa. Setsuna echoed the concern. Melissa explained that her danger sense had not triggered when the mist man attacked, that it had felt as if the mist wielder did not intend them harm and seemed oddly familiar. Setsuna noted that the misty attacker reminded her of her uncle's quirk before he had passed. Rody offered condolences and suggested they deal with the current situation first. Pino fluttered around Rody before landing briefly on Setsuna's shoulder. Tsuyu then sounded an urgent alarm. She warned that they had a big problem. Everyone turned as a villain using a water manipulation quirk struck the boat and began cutting it in half. Panic swept over the group. Melissa quickly organized a plan. She asked Rody if Pino could carry 2 people. Rody answered that Pino could carry 2, barely, and Melissa assigned Setsuna to ride with Rody and Pino while instructing Tsuyu to time a jump and catch Melissa midair. Rody protested in surprise, but Melissa launched into the air, channeling One for All into her legs. She knew she could safely use up to 50% of its power. Melissa unleashed a rapid series of finger flicks and then slammed her arm down hard, striking the water with a powerful shockwave. Tsuyu grabbed Melissa with her tongue and leapt away from the collapsing boat. They landed in the water and swam toward shore. Melissa, soaked, tied her wet hair back into a ponytail. Tsuyu swam with steady composure, as though walking on solid ground. When they reached the shore, Rody and Setsuna stood frozen, trembling with wide eyes. Melissa followed their gaze and understood why. A monstrous figure repeatedly slammed Vlad King into the ground like a rag doll. Dark, feathered wings assaulted Aizawa and left him pinned and struggling. The creature let out a bestial roar and tore through Vlad's blood-based shield as if it were nothing. A stern voice ordered the creature to stop, clarifying that the target was to be captured, not killed, because the boss wanted the quirk intact. Reaper stepped forward, moving slow and deliberate. Only his crimson eyes were visible beneath the shadow of his hand-shaped mask. Dabi emerged a few steps behind, his hair singed and his expression impatient. Dabi demanded to know when their boss would arrive, saying he was ready to deal with the target. Reaper rolled his crimson eyes and reminded him that they needed the boss's instructions. Melissa's face drained as she realized who they worked for. She told the others that the villains served all for one, a man who had lived for over a century and could steal quirks and give them to others. Melissa recounted that he had nearly killed her uncle and could stack quirks to grow enormously powerful. Setsuna and Rodi reacted with shock when Melissa said that All for One might be behind the disappearance of the Midoriya family. Reaper dryly observed that they were terrible at hiding things. Reaper advanced, each footfall heavy and menacing. He extended a hand and black lightning arced from his fingers, crackling with dark energy. He challenged them to show what kind of heroes they were. Melissa's danger sense flared and she dove aside just in time as the black lightning shot toward her. She reacted quickly, whipping out her black whip and lashing toward Reaper. Setsuna split her body into dozens of fragments and launched a flurry of coordinated attacks from all directions, but Dabi intercepted with a blast of blue fire. Rodi sent Pino forward in its phoenix form. The fiery bird slammed into Dabi and knocked him back. From the smoke, Mr. Compress threw a glowing blue marble toward them. Melissa countered with a precise blast of One for All at 10% power, deflecting the projectile before it could strike. Dabi staggered to his feet, singed but still dangerous, and declared that it was time to ignite the battlefield. The clash intensified around them as heroes and villains exchanged fast, dramatic maneuvers in a blur of motion. The students steadied themselves, determined to protect their friends and stand their ground against the organized force arrayed before them. Dabi had been saving this for Endeavor, but he changed his plan. He raised his arm and unleashed Flashfire Fist, Jet Burn, a concentrated blue blaze that surged forward like a living inferno. The UA students thought it looked like Endeavor's ultimate move. Melissa activated Black Whip, grabbing the others and yanking them out of the blast zone, though she was not fast enough to save herself. The flames licked at her suit and she screamed, agony burning through her nerves, yet she forced herself to remain standing. She pushed One for All to 25% and drove a devastating kick into Dabi's gut, launching him back. Reaper chuckled coldly and noted that this was the second time someone had gone flying that day. His tone then grew deadly serious as he unleashed black corrupting lightning, twin bolts that struck Melissa's right arm and left leg at the same spots already scorched. The corrupting energy interfered with her quirk and deepened her pain, slowing her movements considerably. Setsuna, tears in her eyes, split her body into pieces midair and slammed a fist into Reaper's face, furious and demanding to know where Izuku was and what Reaper's boss had done to him. Reaper staggered, dusted off his worn leather coat, and coldly informed them that the quirkless boy was alive and that they would see him soon enough, warning them to stay down or risk their friend's life. Panic spread through the students. Melissa scrambled to find Tsuyu. Mr. Compress chuckled and held up a glowing marble, revealing that Tsuyu was trapped inside. Melissa realized with horror that Compress's quirk allowed him to trap people and objects inside marbles. Before Reaper could finish his command, the doors of the USJ blew open with a thunderous crash and a figure stepped out of the smoke. It was All Might, but without his usual smile. He announced his arrival and told the students not to fear because he was there. Reaper smirked and ordered the Nomu to attack All Might. The Nomu roared and lunged, slamming a monstrous fist into All Might. The hero was pushed back only slightly before countering with Detroit Smash. The Nomu took the hit and threw one back, their punches blurring as a titanic battle raged. All Might noted that the creature seemed to possess multiple quirks. He launched a Texas Smash that sent the Nomu flying, but it rose again, its arms bulging and twisting with muscle fibers. Reaper explained that they had grafted Muscular's quirk onto the Nomu. As the fight between All Might and the Nomu raged, Melissa and the others worked frantically to retrieve the marble from Mr. Compress. Dabi staggered out of the trees, muttering darkly about the situation turning into a joke. Reaper slammed both hands into the ground, sending jagged earth spikes toward Melissa and Rodi, narrowly missing them. Setsuna hovered above, scattering her pieces and trying to snatch the marble from Compress, who relied on stage pocket tricks and afterimages to buy time. Mr. Compress formed a barrier, but Melissa smashed through it with a powered-up punch only to strike an afterimage. Suddenly, ice encased Mr. Compress. Shoto had arrived. Shoto asked for clarification and Melissa thanked him, urgently asking him to hand over Tsuyu. From inside the ice, Mr. Compress deadpanned that the marble was in his coat pocket. Melissa reached in and, after a brief search, pulled out the glowing marble. She smiled despite the pain and asked how they could free Tsuyu. Mr. Compress said he usually freed people himself or that crushing the marble would work, then called for Dabi to get him out of the ice. Blue fire roared past as Shoto and Dabi clashed. Dabi launched a wave of blue flames, and Shoto responded with a wall of ice that melted almost instantly under the intensity. Dabi taunted Shoto, accusing him of weakness and reminding him of family failures. Shoto, furious and defensive, answered that Dabi knew nothing about him. Dabi produced a vial and poured it over his head, and his hair shifted from black to snow-white. Shoto gasped and realized the man before him was Toya. Toya taunted Shoto, asking if he had missed him. The revelation stunned everyone present. Most of the fighters and students froze in shock. Rodi wondered aloud if Shoto actually knew the man. Shoto, still reeling and with wet eyes, told Toya that he had seen what appeared to be his body. Toya countered that what Shoto had seen had been a fake, claiming that the Hero Commission had covered it up and that he had survived. He said some people had helped him heal, the scars had remained until their boss erased them, and now he was stronger than ever. Toya vowed to make Endeavor pay for what had been done to their family and to the people they loved. Tears streaked his face as he spoke, his voice a mix of rage and pain. He laughed in a broken, fierce way and promised that when the boss arrived, the boss would beg for death. Suddenly, a massive explosion sent the Nomu hurtling into the sky. It crashed through the USJ dome and vanished from sight. Reaper stood shocked, incredulous that the Nomu had been launched despite their precautions, and remarked that they had even given it wings for this exact scenario. Everyone paused, taking stock of the sudden turn of events. Compress, wearing a coat after breaking free of the ice, warned everyone not to underestimate All Might. Reaper screamed at the hacker. All Might stood tall with steam rising from his body and declared that it was over for the villains and that he would stand no matter the cost. All Might thought that his time was nearly up, but that the UA staff was almost there. Reaper ordered the team to fall back. Dabi, also known as Toya, landed beside Reaper with a flicker of blue flame. Mr. Compress walked over calmly, brushing off his coat. The remaining villains quickly regrouped behind them. The UA staff rushed into the USJ. The students, now on the main stairs, braced themselves, ready to fight if needed, but they quickly noticed one absence. Ijiro Kirishima asked where Katsuki Bakugo was. Reiko Yanagi looked around and closed her eyes. Her quirk flared briefly and her fingers twitched. She could not sense Bakugo at all. Reaper chuckled and admitted that they had sent Bakugo to the boss, which made All Might and Melissa go pale. Melissa thought of All for one. All Might realized young Bakugo had been taken. More purple portals rippled open as the Legion arrived. Twice, in his Deadpool-inspired suit, stepped out and wavered between violent intent and hesitation. Mustard followed, gas flowing like mist around his armored form. Magna, arms crossed, stepped beside Spinner, who emerged gripping a massive blade. Magna activated his muscle augmentation to enhance his strength. Spinner stepped forward and challenged whether the heroes were truly worthy. Vampire leapt from her portal, grinning behind her mask as her red eyes glowed. Another portal opened and Endeavor was thrown out, landing roughly on the ground. Endeavor was confused about how he had been brought there. Kurogiri appeared, bowed slightly, and apologized to Master Shigaraki while explaining that securing Endeavor had taken longer than expected. Reaper smiled and said they had him, then ordered Kurogiri to get the other one. Kurogiri obliged. Another portal opened and Katsuki Bakugo fell out, unconscious and barely responsive. All Might reacted with horror, recognizing the young hero. Reaper mocked the heroes, claiming the boss had broken Bakugo and that heroes only cared about quirks and power, accusing them of letting the strong crush the weak. The crowd fell silent, and even Endeavor looked stunned. Reaper continued, asserting that the heroes had blood on their hands and that Bakugo's quirk now belonged to their boss. Juzo Hananuki demanded an explanation, and Reaper called out to the boss. Inky black portals split the air as Team Terror stepped out. Stain, the hero killer, stood tall with his mask and twin blades. Angel arrived with flowing golden hair and crimson wings folded behind her. Marksmith took position beside her, his mechanical arm and leg gleaming and his single eye scanning everyone coldly. Marksmith warned that one wrong move would prompt him to shoot. Angel told him to wait and let the heroes squirm a bit. Gentle Criminal strolled in, sipping tea with flair. La Brava, grinning, activated a drone she had been tinkering with and tossed it into the air. Angel flicked 6 golden coins into the air that morphed into drones through her alchemy quirk. A much larger portal opened and a massive bird-like Nomu swooped in, its black feathers swirling with golden light. A cloaked figure rode it and dismounted, stroking the Nomu's beak before it bowed its head in response. Then the final portal formed and the most feared villain in Japan stepped out. Karma emerged, and Reiko felt a chill as if her blood had frozen. Karma remarked that the others had done a good job. Reaper thanked Player 1. Karma announced that he was going to make them wish he had stayed away and that when he was done the hero's status quo would be over. He laughed long, loud, and cruelly, declaring that this would be fun. A swirling dark portal tore open high in the sky, casting an ominous shadow over the battlefield. A voice spoke from the darkness, and everyone felt a cold chill, especially All Might. He panicked at the recognition. The darkness peeled away to reveal a man in an immaculate black business suit, his face obscured by a sleek, stylized breathing mask. His presence was suffocating. Nizu's eyes widened in rare fear as he identified the stranger as the Demon King. Even the most hardened members of the UA staff looked shaken. All for One smiled beneath his mask and greeted UA and Endeavor, declaring that he had come to shatter their precious symbol of peace. The UA staff and students froze. The most powerful villain teams had gathered and were now working with a figure who made even All Might and Nizu tremble. All for One's voice carried a twisted joy as he noted how many promising quirks were waiting to be taken. Steam poured from All Might's body, but he knew what had to be done. All Might shouted that All for One's reign must end now. All for One replied that he had heard those same words from everyone for All user before they fell and that All Might would be the next name on that list. All Might ordered Nizu to get the students out immediately. Nizu urgently commanded the teachers to assist and the students to evacuate. Before anyone could move, red and purple warp gates tore open behind them. Kurogiri said they would not be allowed to leave. Marksmith stated that no one would leave until the boss commanded it, insisting they needed an audience for All Might's fall. Kirishima charged forward, but Marksmith used his guardian's grasp to summon an invisible wall that slammed the student back. Juzo Hananuki reacted quickly, softening the ground beneath Marksmith and pinning him in place, though Kurogiri hovered unaffected. Kurogiri commented on finding Juzo's quirk interesting and hinted his masters would value it. Snipe fired at Kurogiri's neck brace, but Kurogiri warped the bullet away so it struck Snipe's arm instead. Snipe cried out and clutched his arm in pain. Kurogiri warned that a repeat would endanger the children, and Midnight angrily questioned why he spoke as if he were not one of them. Kurogiri's voice cracked with anger as he asserted that they had been forced into the shadows by a corrupted society and that they were the forsaken ones the heroes had let fall. A voice declared that its master had ordered it to show true fear. Kurogiri's mind apologized to Nemuri, pleading for forgiveness. With a surge of warped energy, staff and students were scattered into a single zone. Back in the plaza, All Might stood alone, shaken. He cursed inwardly. All for One turned toward him and warned that he knew what would come next. One by one, the Legion and Team Terror stepped into inky portals. Karma was the last to glance at All Might before vanishing. All for One clapped his hands and told All Might it was time to finish this. His body swelled with layered power, muscle augmentations glowing red, kinetic energy crackling from multiple boosters, blue light sparking from stacked brawn enhancements. His limbs coiled with spring-like mechanisms, preparing a devastating air cannon. All for One move out his hand and an explosive blast cratered the ground. All Might blurred aside, shifting between his weakened and powered forms to dodge, then landed with his eyes locked on his nemesis. All Might charged with One for All surging at 70%. Their fists collided, but All for One activated an air wall and used impact recoil to send the strike rebounding and fling All Might back. All for One remarked on how much weaker All Might had become. All Might admitted that might be true, but he declared that he was still the #1 hero. Golden energy arced across his body as One for All surged higher and steam erupted around him. He refused to be finished and unleashed Detroit Smash. All for One responded with his full quirk arsenal: impactor, heavy payload, stacked spring-like limbs and muscle augmentations, air walk, rivet enhancements, hypertrophy boosters, multiple kinetic and bronze surges, and bone-like implements. His right arm transformed into a titanic weapon layered, reinforced muscle and hardened, spike-like protrusions forming along its surface as additional arms sprouted and rearranged themselves into a brutal, engineered limb. All for One declared that this combination would end All Might. All Might's fist ignited with golden power, and when the two strikes met they released a shockwave that shattered the USJ floor and tore apart the glass dome above. Unseen by All Might, a small drone crafted by La Brava hovered above and streamed the battle live to every media outlet. The entire world was now watching as their symbol of peace fought a villain who seemed every bit his equal, if not stronger. With each thunderous clash, All Might's form flickered, his mighty frame slipping closer to its weakened state. Sir Night-Eye watched the broadcast in horror. He remembered the grim vision he had seen, All Might fallen and killed by an unknown villain. Seeing All for One alive and battling All Might struck him with cold certainty. He realized the villain in his prediction was All for One and that the enemy had been restored. His hands trembled as he looked back at the screen and understood that All Might had no idea. He snatched up his phone and dialed. Gran Torino picked up and began to answer, but Night-Eye interrupted, urgently informing him that All for One had been healed and that this was the battle where All Might would die. Gran Torino froze in shock and horror, questioning how that could be. Night-Eye insisted that the location was exact, the USJ at UA. Gran Torino told him he would rally reinforcements immediately. Night-Eye cut the line and called Mirio. Night-Eye warned Mirio to head to the USJ at once because a villain attack was in progress. Mirio replied that he was watching the fight and was at a loss. He could not face the monster All Might was fighting and had seen All Might weakening. Night-Eye explained that the villain was draining All Might's strength with every clash and that he could not be allowed to touch anyone else, since he could steal and bestow quirks. Mirio reported that both first-year hero classes were at the USJ and that he had seen the teachers leave as the campus came under attack. Night-Eye instructed Mirio to gather every second and third year with provisional licenses and lead them to the USJ while Night-Eye himself would bring reinforcements. Mirio swallowed hard and agreed to do his best. In the landslide zone, Endeavor fell through a warp gate but ignited his flames midair to halt his descent. He landed hard and scanned the empty terrain until he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to find a man with white hair stepping from the shadows. Dabi, though his hair was white instead of the usual dark. Burn scars ran up his arms, but his outfit was remarkably intact: tattered overcoat, boots, and bracers. Endeavor called for Dabi to surrender. Dabi chuckled and summoned his quirk, sending a blue, intense flame around him that was hotter and crueler than anything Endeavor could conjure. His head bowed to hide his face. Dabi taunted Endeavor, asking what he intended to do now, suggesting Endeavor could not finish him the way he once had. Endeavor demanded to know what he meant. Dabi reminded him that Endeavor had not been present for certain truths about his family. When Endeavor angrily told him to keep his son's name out of his mouth, Dabi only sneered and coldly said that the son in question was his own brother. Rage exploded in Endeavor's chest and he unleashed a massive blast of fire at Dabi. Dabi raised one hand calmly and used a technique that formed a towering wall of blue flame that effortlessly smothered Endeavor's attack. With a surge of his own inferno, Dabi's old scars seemed to mend as his ruined skin smoothed and his piercings melted away. He produced a pendant on a chain forged from rare quirk metal, at its core a shard of ice crystal from an old heirloom, and placed it around his neck as proof of something larger than the duel between them. When Dabi lifted his head, their eyes met two sets of turquoise, one filled with years of pain and hatred, the other widening with shock, recognition, and a faint flicker of fear. Dabi, revealed as Toya, accused Endeavor of believing the future could erase the past and blamed him for the consequences of old sins. The ground beneath them warped as Toya's blue fire surged outward in a roaring wave that turned stone to smoldering slag. Toya urged his father on, declaring that this would be his last day. The inferno surged toward him. Endeavor dodged, his mind reeling as the revelation that his son Toya was alive unfolded. Alive, a villain, a threat that could ruin his career. For the sake of his reputation and the legacy he had built as the number 2 hero, he told himself he would stop Toya by any means necessary. Toya advanced, contempt clear in his posture. He accused his father of planning to kill him so he could keep calling himself a hero. He slammed his foot into the ground and raised a massive wall of dark ice that moved upward toward Endeavor. Endeavor countered with flames intended to melt the ice, but the barrier resisted and trapped him. Toya informed him that only his flames could melt it, then stepped forward until he stood over the frozen number 2 hero. Toya circled Endeavor across the shattered, scorched and frozen wasteland, speaking bitterly about his upbringing. He blamed Endeavor for seeking a successor with power, for arranging a marriage of convenience to combine ice and fire, and for treating him as an experiment and a failure when the results did not match expectations. Toya accused his father of turning training into abuse, of leaving emotional and physical wounds, and of demanding worthiness until Toya snapped with rage. He reflected with mixed relief and bitterness when his sister Fuyumi was born, noting that her ice quirk had spared her from their father's ambitions and that Endeavor had ignored his other children. He stormed through memories of their mother and the family's suffering and recounted being abandoned at Sekoto Peak, nearly dying before being found and nursed back to health. After 3 years in a coma, Toya returned to a ruined life and vowed to finish the story he had been forced into. Toya accused Endeavor of imposing the same cruel expectations on Shoto, of breaking him into a tool of power, and of driving their mother, Rei, to a breaking point. He blamed his father for the scars and pain left on their family and for turning those closest to them into casualties of his obsession. His voice rose and fell with rage and something like sorrow as he described everything he had endured simply to try to make his father proud. Toya then turned all that energy into a white-blue conflagration in his palms, flames swelling until they glowed pure white. He formed a focused attack and released it point-blank. The blast erupted in a storm of white fire that engulfed Endeavor and blasted across the battlefield. The explosion tore through the surroundings in a dramatic, anime-style display of energy and light. When the light and smoke cleared, Endeavor lay motionless and incapacitated at the edge of the blast, his suit torn and singed. A dark, spreading substance began to cover him, and after a brief moment his form was obscured and then gone. Toya watched without remorse and told himself that when the time came, the boss would take Endeavor's quirk. A hovering drone moved into view and its operator confirmed to Toya that everything had been recorded and that the footage would be released once the larger conflict between All Might and All for One concluded. Toya nodded, satisfied, and stepped through a red warp gate that opened at his side, his pale flames fading into the void as he left. In another zone, all of Class 1A, Class 1B, and the UA staff found themselves dropped into a large expanse of ruined urban land. Setsuna groaned as she sat up and rubbed the back of her head, wondering where they had been placed. The group's eyes took in the collapsed buildings and scattered rubble of a simulated destroyed city. 13 struggled to rise with assistance from Achiko Uraraka and Tsuyu Azui. Achiko, whose quirk allows her to nullify gravity on solid objects by touching them with the pads on her fingertips, looked around anxiously and asked what this place was. 13 spoke weakly but with steady concern, identifying the area as the ruin zone of the USJ, a simulated destroyed urban environment, and questioned why they had been sent there. A new voice from the shadows interrupted. Dozens of villains stepped forward and surrounded the group. At their head stood a figure draped in a black hood, his face obscured. He introduced himself as Hive Mind, the right hand of Karma, and told them that they had not wanted the heroes to be caught in the crossfire between All Might and All for One. The UA staff quickly moved to shield the students. Midnight demanded to know who the intruder was. Hive Mind lifted a hand, and with a thunderous impact a massive bird-like Nomu landed beside him, sealing the confrontation. Its feathers were ink black, its beak jagged, and its glowing eyes fixed on the heroes. Hivemind explained that the hero's quirks were failing because of the creature. One of the creature's quirks, Erasure Spot, generated a dome of energy that shut down quirks inside its range, and it could form smaller bubbles where quirks remained active. Reiko Yanagi clenched her fists and demanded to know what Hivemind wanted with them. Reiko's quirk, Poltergeist, allowed her to telekinetically manipulate nearby objects and people. Hivemind answered calmly, almost cold, saying that the goal was to make them understand that no one was born a villain but was often pushed down a path by circumstances. He said he had once dreamed of being a hero but that his quirk had been judged too dangerous and he had been cast aside. For now, Hivemind called Minotaurus forward. Minotaurus stepped forward and acknowledged the order. He was a towering brute with bluish skin, a single cyclopean eye, and two massive horns jutting from his skull. His black sleeveless tunic stretched over his bulky frame, gray-brown pants were tucked into heavy boots, and a wide white belt was slung across his chest. Minotaurus explained that he had been judged for his appearance and that his quirk had not made him who he was. He said he had been denied opportunities, forced toward criminal circles because no one would give him a chance, and that after being attacked and accused by a hero he had fought back to defend himself and later served time in prison. When he was released, he felt that becoming a villain was the only path left to him. The students and staff stood in stunned silence. Mina Ishido reacted in disbelief and asked why a hero would do something like that. A bulky man with golden yellow skin and two massive spikes jutting from his shoulders stepped forward and introduced himself as Spike. He had a peaked head with a crater-like mark in the center of his forehead, red eyes, and sharp fangs. His torn jeans and ripped white shirt gave him a savage look. Spike explained that his quirk, Spikes, had made people stare and whisper his whole life, that he had been shut out of normal work and had turned to stealing to survive. He said he had found a place among the boss's people, and that felt like more care than the heroes had shown him. A young woman with long gray dreadlocks and sharp brown eyes stepped forward next. She wore a dark purple bodysuit patterned in light gray and black boots and went by Needlehair. Needlehair said she had wanted to be a hero but had been harmed by one in the past. She declined to give details. She added that when that same hero failed to save her mother, she lost faith in the hero system. She said she had done terrible things just to survive but that, after seeing Stain on television confront the hero who had destroyed her life, she had felt strangely safer and more alive. Her laugh sounded hollow and empty. Hivemind moved to her side and Spike gave her a gentle hug. One after another, other villains stepped forward to share how they had been broken, rejected, and pushed into darkness. Finally, only the Legion and Team Terror remained. Reaper was the first to step forward. He removed the hand that served as his mask to reveal a scarred face and identified himself as Tomura Shigaraki, saying he abandoned his real name long ago when his quirk first awakened. Tomura described a childhood in which his father despised heroes and abuse escalated when Tomura expressed a desire to be a hero. He said that after a severe beating he was left outside alone and while comforting his dog, his quirk activated uncontrollably. The power spiraled out of his control and resulted in the deaths of those closest to him. As a broken child, he wandered the streets until Master found him and gave him a home and a purpose. Tomura said that later his mentor was struck down by a powerful hero, and that the pain of that day never left him. He demonstrated his decay quirk by closing his hand around a stone, which crumbled to dust before reforming in his palm. Tomura explained that his power had evolved into the ability to decay and then, within a day, to restore, a cruel balance that only deepened the mark of his past. He asked whether he should be seen as a villain or a victim, then stepped back into the crowd. Kurogiri moved forward next, his mist shifting around him. He said that his name had been given to him after a master saved him and brought him back from a state he could not have escaped on his own. He explained that he was what people called a high-end Nomu, a being created from those who had died and then been resurrected to serve. Oboro Shirakumo apologized that he had never come home. The mist peeled back, revealing Oboro Shirakumo's face. Midnight gasped and covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Setsuna froze, her own tears falling as she stared at her uncle's familiar face. Present Mike shook and cried that it couldn't be Oboro. Shota, injured from his earlier fight, stared in stunned horror. The staff stood in silence, reeling at the sight of their lost friend returned as a Nomu. The students, all except Reiko, looked on in confusion. The mist closed again, hiding Oboro's face. Kurogiri admitted that the answer was both yes and no, that he did not even know anymore. He sighed under the weight of it. Kurogiri explained that his real name was Oboro Shirakumo and that he had once been the pro-hero Loud Cloud. He described dying in a villain attack years ago, how All for One had found his body and brought him to his doctor, and how they had turned him into a Nomu, causing him to lose his memories and his former life. He said that for years he existed only as Kurogiri and that, during that time, he had seen how this world treated people, how those with so-called weak or villainous quirks were cast aside and how the quirkless were mocked and ignored. When his memories finally returned, he could not bring himself to protect a world like that. He apologized again and said he could not come home, not yet, not until he knew their children would live in a world without quirk discrimination, a world where no one had to fear the gift they were born with. Midnight broke down in tears, her heart aching at the sight of the man she still loved caught beneath mist and tragedy. Kurogiri wiped at his own tears as he walked back, and Toya placed a hand on his shoulder in silent support. Toya said that people would see his story soon enough and that it would be streamed after the big fight. Mustard then stepped forward. He identified his villain name as Mustard and revealed his real name as Nakayama Seiichi as he removed his gas mask, showing his young face. Nakayama said his quirk had not been suited for combat and that it made people uncomfortable. Others had bullied and harmed him for it. At home, he had been mistreated until he could no longer bear it, and he had run away. He explained that the boss found him and gave him what he had never had before, a place to belong, a family, and a home where he was not punished for existing. Twice moved as if to step forward, but Spinner put a hand on him to stop him. Spinner spoke for Twice, saying that Twice had trouble keeping his thoughts together. Twice shouted in protest, insisting he was not wrong. Spinner grimaced and explained that Twice had used his quirk to create company for himself. The clones had fought until only one remained, and Twice now doubted who the original was. Spinner insisted that the idea that Twice was merely a clone was impossible. Spinner glanced at a red-haired woman and asked Magna to go next. Magna nodded and said that her story was simple. People never let her be herself, and she had to hide who she truly was every day. She said she only wanted a world where no one had to hide who they were, where everyone could live free, and that was all she had ever wanted, a freer world. Mr. Compress stepped forward with a theatrical bow and revealed his real name as Atsuhiro Seiko. He removed his hat and the masks beneath to show his true face. Atsuhiro said he was born into a family of traveling performers who lived for acting and sleight of hand. As hero society grew, stage magic had lost its luster. People cared more for flashy quirks and spectacle than for the subtleties of performance. To him, heroes were no better than actors, selfish performers playing to the crowd while ignoring suffering behind the scenes. He explained that he had embraced the mask of Mr. Compress and joined the Legion, finally finding a stage that was his again. Spinner moved to the front and said his name was Shuichi Iguchi, though he preferred Spinner. He described a life like many others in the group. His mother had done her best, but the world had not cared. He had been mocked, denied work, and forced into hardship because of how he looked. A landlord had squeezed him until he had nothing left. Then he had heard Stain's words and, for the first time, thought the rotten world could change. Like the others, he said he had found a home with the Legion, a family that accepted him for who he was, not for how he looked, something the heroes had never offered. A voice burst out behind him as a sharp-eyed girl with a manic grin stepped forward. She identified herself as Himiko Toga and said that her quirk created dangerous impulses she struggled to control. Her parents had tried to force her into normalcy, and she had resorted to harmful measures to manage those impulses until she reached a breaking point. She admitted that people had been harmed because of what she could not control, and that, when she heard about a figure called the hero hunter Karma, his vision had lit something inside her. She wanted to meet him and emulate him. When teased about her feelings, she blushed and snapped, then hurled a knife in a flash of agitated energy. The knife missed as the others avoided it. She then returned to join the group. Lady Nagant stepped forward next, and both staff and students tensed. A ripple of fear passed through the room. She had once been an inmate of Tartarus, the most feared prison, and yet she looked remarkably young now. She introduced herself as Kana Tsutsumi and confirmed she was Lady Nagant. She explained that she appeared younger because of a run-in with a little girl whose quirk could rewind organic matter. Kana scanned the room, locking eyes with the teachers and students, and said that the little girl was now her adopted daughter, hidden somewhere the heroes would not find. She vowed she would not allow the girl to be used as the gangs had used others. Karma placed a hand on Kana's shoulder, and she took a deep breath, apologizing softly as her expression softened. She began to explain that when she was a teenager, the Hero Commission had approached her with a program to recruit gifted youths, and she had agreed. She trailed off, and a tense silence filled the room. It was the worst mistake of her life. At first, the training had been normal. They honed her aim, her reflexes, her reload speed, everything. It was tough, but she adapted, and soon she became a pro-hero, everything she had ever wanted. Her first missions went well. She took down villains without killing them and saved people. Then the commission began giving her kill orders. Kana confessed that she had killed many people. At first, they were small-time thugs and dangerous villains. Later, the commission ordered her to eliminate civilians they labeled as threats to society, people who in truth threatened the commission's control. She explained that the Hero Commission manipulated almost everything that happened in the world, covering up abuses by their heroes and blackmailing anyone who refused to obey. Kana said she had been their weapon, another tool they could point and fire. She looked down at her hands and, for a moment, was haunted by the consequences of what she had done. Once someone had taken a life, she said, the memory never left them. After enough of those acts, she had learned to live with it until she finally broke. Kana admitted to killing the former head of the commission. After that, she was locked away, her name dragged through the mud, and she was kept alive only for her quirk. Nito Minoma hesitated and asked for clarification. Kana's voice grew cold as she explained what she meant. She described the commission's plan to combine her quirk with another powerful quirk to create a stronger ability, or to breed variants until they obtained the right combination. They wanted her alive for that purpose. She added that they had tried but ultimately failed. A ripple of disbelief spread through the crowd of students and staff. Midnight muttered in shock. Kana made clear that she had only used Hawks as an example and that he likely had no idea anything like this had happened. Then Stain stepped forward. The fear in the room deepened, even more than Lady Nagant, the infamous hero killer terrified them. Stain removed his mask, revealing a scarred face and the marks of countless battles. He identified himself as Kaizome Akaguro and reminded everyone that he had once been a student at this very school. Kaizome explained that he never made it into the hero course and had been in the general education department. He loved heroes and wanted to be one so badly that he became a vigilante under the name Stendhal. Under that identity, he discovered corruption beneath the surface of hero society. He left you, trained his quirk every day, and honed his body until he became a living weapon. He swore he would cleanse the world of fake heroes and restore the meaning of true heroism. His gaze swept the crowd with intense conviction, and he addressed the staff, urging them to keep teaching the students what it meant to be real heroes, because he saw potential in them. Angel and Marksmith then stepped forward, holding hands. Angel introduced herself as Anna Servino and Marksmith as Julio Gandini. Anna explained that she had been saved by Team Terror and the Legion. When asked for clarification, she shared that her quirk, called overmodification, could amplify another person's quirk if they were compatible, sometimes granting new abilities through prolonged contact. If someone was not compatible, however, the quirk caused intense pain. She acknowledged that, to avoid harming others, she had lived in isolation. Julio added that his quirk, neutralization, could suppress both her power and the pain it caused. He had served the Servino family as a butler and had done everything he could to give Anna a normal life. When the Galini Mafia learned about her quirk and attacked the Servino estate, Julio was the only survivor of that assault. He had been severely injured but refused to lose Anna, rebuilding himself and going to save her. By the time he arrived, Team Terror and the Legion had already ensured her safety, and since that day Anna and Julio had stood by their side, grateful for the new life they had been given. They rejoined the others, and Gentle Criminal and La Brava stepped forward. Danjuro Tabita introduced himself as the Gentle Criminal, and Manami Tabita presented herself as La Brava. The staff and students reacted with surprise at the shared surname and the apparent age difference. Danjuro explained that he often appeared older than he actually was. He went on to describe his past as an idealistic young man who dreamt of becoming a hero who could inspire hope and change. Rejected from hero courses and ridiculed for a seemingly unimpressive quirk, he had been branded a criminal after a failed attempt to stop a crime resulted in collateral damage. Disillusioned and heartbroken, he came to believe there was no place for gentle heroes in a world obsessed with strength and fame. Rebranding himself as Gentle Criminal, he began staging elegant, non-lethal crimes to expose flaws in the hero system and draw attention to society's hypocrisy. Manami then shared that she had been a shy, lonely girl who struggled to make friends and often felt invisible. Bullied and rejected, she had found solace online and discovered videos of the Gentle Criminal. His ideals and charisma had resonated with her, and their paths had crossed from that point forward. Inspired by his message of challenging a broken society, I reached out to him and pledged my loyalty, becoming his partner in crime under the name La Brava. Manami giggled and, while fiddling with a controller, told everyone they had to hurry because the fight looked like it was going to end soon. The students held onto a sliver of hope that all might prevail against the unknown villain, while the staff feared he had already reached his limit. Manami and Danjuro returned to the other villains. Hivemind approached with his hood up to hide his identity. Hivemind introduced himself and said he would reveal his name after telling his story. He explained that his life had changed when his quirk manifested at age 4 and people immediately labeled it a villain's quirk. From that day he endured bullying and beatings. Only his parents and 3 friends treated him like a person rather than a threat, and for a while that was enough until everything fell apart. 2 friends moved away, his parents were killed by a so-called hero, and he was passed through foster homes where everyone focused only on his quirk. They restrained his voice because his power activated when he spoke. Each day brought another bruise and reminder that the world saw him as a villain in waiting. Then his last friend returned, badly scarred across the right side of his face. That friend told him the truth about how people like them were treated, and he joined him. Hivemind apologized in advance and pulled down his hood, revealing purple hair and tired eyes. Reiko's eyes widened. Setsuna reacted in stunned disbelief. Hivemind revealed his name as Hitoshi Shinso and that his birth quirk was brainwashing. Hitoshi sat on a pile of rocks beside his massive bird-like Nomu, said that was his story and who he was, then leaned back against the Nomu and said he was going to sleep and to wake him when it was over. A loud slap echoed. Reiko face-palmed and said she could not honestly say she was surprised. Setsuna joined the facepalm and asked rhetorically how Hitoshi could become a villain and still be so nonchalant. Karma approached, watching Hitoshi with a serious expression that no one could read. His eyes behind his mask glowed crimson with restrained power. Karma declared that it was time for everyone to know the leader of the Legion of Villains and Team Terror, introducing himself as the hero hunter and the symbol of chaos. He announced that he would reveal his own story. Karma activated several illusion quirks. A pink and blue mist filled the space and formed a void-like scene. In the illusion they all saw a playground where 2 toddlers were at play. One child had short, spiky, sandy blonde hair and was instantly recognizable to those who knew him as a young Katsuki Bakugo. The other child had a round face framed by a mop of fluffy dark green hair and 4 small freckles in diamond formations across his cheeks. Setsuna and Reiko watched the young green-haired boy and felt their hearts ache. Reiko murmured the name Izuku under her breath. Karma, appearing as a shadowy figure in the illusion, identified the blonde child as Katsuki Bakugo and the green-haired child as Izuku Midoriya. The assembled group fell silent. They had all heard about the Aldra Junior Schools and how the Midoriya family's disappearances hinted at the Meta Liberation Army's return. The vision showed young Izuku, about 3 years old, building a sandcastle and excitedly telling his friend he could not wait to see what their quirks would be. Young Katsuki gave a thumbs up and declared they would be great heroes. The scene shifted. At age 5, young Izuku was thrown into a tree by an explosion. Young Katsuki taunted him angrily and unleashed repeated explosions, each one more forceful. Suddenly, an arm materialized to intercept Katsuki, and everyone with heightened hearing recognized the quirk. Young Setsuna rushed in, tears already forming as she watched. A younger Setsuna ran to Izuku as an arm reattached itself to her. She told the attacker to get away. 2 rocks struck the aggressor, one glowing with a purple light. Young Hitoshi and young Reiko had arrived and stood between Katsuki and Izuku. Hitoshi demanded to know what was wrong with Katsuki. Katsuki snarled back and told them to be quiet. Hitoshi's quirk took effect, and he ordered Katsuki to walk away and leave them alone. Everyone watching the memory was shocked to see that Katsuki had attacked a child for lacking a quirk and that Reiko and Setsuna already knew Izuku. Young Setsuna comforted Izuku, saying it would be okay, and helped him up. Izuku was singed and shaken but managed a weak thanks. Young Hitoshi put Izuku's arm over his shoulder and promised they would always have his back. Young Reiko nodded in agreement. Izuku smiled through tears and expressed how grateful he was to have them. The vision shifted again, showing the 4 of them a little older, Izuku hugging the girls with tears on his face. A brief bridge sentence tied the memory back to the present. Hitoshi was also crying a little but was trying to hold it back and failing. Everyone present was confused about what was happening. Young Izuku, age 7, cried that he would miss them. Young Setsuna, age 7, hugged him tightly and said they would miss him too. Young Reiko, age 7, hugged him as well and echoed that they would miss him. The scene shifted. Izuku was now much older, his school uniform singed and torn, and Katsuki Bakugo stood over him. Teen Katsuki, age 15, shouted that Deku was worthless and then set Izuku's notebook on fire. Teen Katsuki declared that he would be the best, that his perfect story began with him getting into UA, and that if Izuku ever made it into UA it would ruin that story. Teen Katsuki grabbed Izuku and placed his hand near the right side of Izuku's face, then unleashed a fierce burst of energy in the illusion. The projection showed heat and sparks lashing at Izuku, his screams echoed through the room. Teen Izuku, age 15, cried out in pain and begged for it to stop. UA staff and students watched the illusion in horror, many beginning to cry. Setsuna ran toward the projection but phased through it, crying as she tried to stop what she thought was real. The sequence lasted only seconds but felt much longer. Teen Katsuki stopped the projection and told Izuku that he would never be a hero, urging him to jump off the roof.